As you know, Colombia was shaken by a magnitude 7.4 earthquake last Monday. And these days have been days of tears and lament for all Colombians. 4 major cities and smaller ones were the most affected. Homes and buildings were destroyed. Hundreds of people died, and many others are under the rubble, and others are missing. Several of our friends, relatives, and church members have lost their homes. However, the earthquake has tested Colombians' solidarity with prayers, food, money, and emergency personnel, among other forms of support. The Colombian people have been moved by compassion for their neighbors. However, paradoxically, in the early days of the tragedy, the new Colombian government did not allow entry to some foreign rescue teams due to ideological differences with those governments. But he permitted that Israel and the US enter in Colombia, but not Mexico and other countries. How wise is it to withhold foreign aid directed to a nation suffering the consequences of an earthquake because of ideological differences? Can there be compassion without mission, or mission without compassion? The text of Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28, invite us to reflect on this. Matthew 15, 21 through 28, tells the story of a Syrophoenician woman who cries out for compassion. This text shows that the first century church began to spread the gospel in populations outside Palestine. That is, in other cultures, beliefs, races, and people with diverse customs. This is also shown by the stories that precede and follow the text. I like so much to see the Bible, the text inside of what is behind of the text, before and after that. The account that precedes that of the Syrophoenician woman says that the Pharisees confront Jesus because the disciples of Jesus broke the tradition of purity by not washing their hands before eating. Therefore, they are unclean before God. However, Jesus insists that makes a person pure or impure comes from his or her heart. It is, we must take care of our thoughts and feelings. The account that follows that of the Syrophoenician woman deals with the feeding of the 4,000, a symbol of the gospel spreading to the four corners of the earth. Therefore, the interpretation of Matthew 15, 21 to 28, must take into account both compassion for the woman and the mission entrusted to the church to go to other cultures. But let us go to the text that is the object of our reflection today. Jesus is on the way to Tyre and Sidon. non-Jewish region. And a Canaanite woman came out to meet him. She didn't follow Jewish traditions. She should have been considered unclean, not only because she was a woman, but also because she was a Canaanite. An important fact about the Canaanites is that they were historically recognized as enemies of Israel. And Jesus enters there. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, the Tyrians constantly attacked different territories of the Jews, expropriated the property of the Jews who lived in Tyre, and enslaved some of them. This led to the Jews' distrust of the Canaanites. The woman in this text, unnamed, begins to cry and saying, "Lord, Son of David." This indicates that she recognized that Jesus was of the lineage of King David. Therefore, he could be the new king of the Jews, the promised Messiah. It should be remembered that the kings who ruled Judah for 400 years waged wars against the peoples of Canaan to conquer the promised land. So this woman had memory what happened in the history of Canaan territory. And the woman continues to cry out, "Have mercy on me." Surely the woman remembered that David, the King David, took the woman of his conquest as trophies and did not want that to happen to her. You remember the wars that the King David made in that time? The trophies were women. However, she immediately explained why she asked for compassion. "A demon seriously torments my daughter." What was the demon or unclean spirit? The text doesn't give us any clues. I'm so sorry. The text is inviting to us to think what kind of demons were tormented the daughter of this woman. Maybe the daughter symbolizes the new generation of Canaanites who fear what happened to women in the past. It's my interpretation. But regardless of the demon identity, Jesus does not respond to the woman's request. He was in silence. And in the face of silence, of Jesus' silence, his disciples say to him, "Send her away, for she cries out after us." You remember when the disciples were saying the same sentence in the gospel? The children, and it's the same expression that the disciples used in the feeding of the 5,000. The disciple didn't want to take on responsibilities for others. They would like to study the Torah. They would like to be with Jesus. They would like to sing, to worship. But They didn't want to take responsibilities for others, especially for those in need. The disciples wanted to do mission without compassion. Because of this, if I have more life, if God provides me more life, I would like to write one book titled Theology Without a Smile. Because we need to smell the neighbor. And at the disciples' request, Jesus told them, I have only been sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus appears there like very exclusive people. In other words, Jesus' mission was directed to the Jews before other peoples. You know that Matthew is a gospel that is directed to Jewish people. Faced with Jesus' refusal, the Syrophoenician woman insists, Lord, help me. Insist. No? Like when you are going to one house and you insist to knock, and nobody is coming to open the door. This is a cry that comes from the gut, a cry of despair. It is a cry for compassion. It is a cry that invites Jesus to rethink the priority of his mission. It's incredible how, when we are reading the text, we are taking into account people that meet with Jesus, but we are not putting attention what is happening with Jesus. Jesus is confronted in this text. And Jesus again tries to defend his mission to the Jews. Then he says to the woman, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Do you listen to this expression before? Some believe that this is a racist and exclusionary expression towards those who are not Jewish. However, other commentators, such as Gerd Thyssen, believe that this expression does not have xenophobic connotations, but economic ones. Why? According to Gerd Thyssen and Flavius Josephus in the past, the Tyrians were economically strong because the Tyrians exploited the Jews who lived in their territory. Is this similar for you, this situation? Therefore, the Jews in Canaan were the most in need. So Thyssen proposes to translate the verse in this way. Wait until the poor Jews are first satisfied. For it is not right to take bread from the poor and give it to the rich non-Jews in the cities. It's a radical response of Jesus. But it's only interpretations. You can decide what is better for you. You can decide what is better for you to go to sleep very well. But the woman doesn't remain silent, again replaced to him. This woman is very interesting, no? It's not in silence. It's a revolutionary woman. Well, she said, Yes, Lord, but dogs also eat from the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And this illustration of the woman at the table helps us to understand that the mission should not exclude anyone. This is the Syrophoenician woman's confession of faith. Listen this. The good news is for everyone. This is the confession of faith of this woman. And according to Matthew's Gospel, Jesus understood the purpose of the mission and said, well, now Jesus was converted. Jesus realized what was the confession of faith of this woman. Jesus understood very well. And he said, woman, you have great faith. Be done to you as you wish. And her daughter was healed from that hour. In other words, her daughter received healing, salvation. Because healing or salvation is for all people of the earth and must begin with compassion. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, human suffering is worthy of the compassion of the rest of humanity. Not only suffering found in all people, but also compassion. The contradiction of mission occurs when, in the face of a people suffering, there is no compassion. Therefore, the rulers of suffering peoples, such as those of Colombia after the earthquake, cannot close the doors to other nations that want to help. And the church. The church must be attentive to the cry of people who suffer, regardless of their nationality or origin. The church is called to have compassion for those who are tormented by various circumstances, demons. And it must respond with concrete actions that help heal and save people who suffer. You know that in the Bible, the words heal and save are very close. And like Emmanuel Mennonite Church, this is the question for us. What can we do in situations like the one Colombia is experiencing? May the Lord of Mission, as inclusion and compassion, inspire us to look for practical ways to stand in solidarity with them. Amen.